Hi folks, thanks for joining me for this week's stillwater pattern. What you see in the vise is my rendition of a floating fry, so without further ado, let's get into it. In the vise then is a Hanak H 970 barbless hook. This one's at size 8, it's on a heavy wire hook and it's in black nickel. The thread I'm going to be using today is the Veevus GSP. It's at 30 denier. Sorry, got that upside down there. 30 denier. And the first thing I'm going to do, as always with these nano silks, is I'm going to add a little bit of super glue to the shank of the hook. And then get a few thread wraps down and run that all the way to the bottom of my fly. So it's basically in line with the bump on this wave hook. Then I can take away my waist end. Next I'm going to add in some silver and gold Flashabou, and what I'm going to do is I've folded it in half a few times and I'm just going to, in the bin, take the end of this off. Lay it onto the shank. It doesn't need to be tidy. We're going to cover all this up anyway, so don't be worrying at this point about neatness. Run it down again to that pronounced bump on the hook, helps you out. And what I'm going to do with the end of this is I'm just going to use the blade of my scissors to take away the excess. Don't want a straight cut with it. I want it nice and raggedy at the end there. So next, what we've got to do is create a loop for dubbing. Now I'm a big fan of just splitting the thread, and you can split this GSP, but for this fly it's quite a big dub. So what I'm going to do is create a dubbing loop. So I'm running off quite a bit of thread, and I'm going to capture that in and make sure that it's secured at the end, then all the way back up with the thread to just about there where I want the fly to end. So I've created the dubbing loop, quite a simple thing to do, and I've got my dubbing spinner here, which I'm going to hook up and just let it hang down. So next we've got to prepare our dubbing, and the dubbing I'm going to be using is from F&F, and this is the Baitfish Pearl, and it's 60mm. It's like a glister flash, if you like. Now when you take it out of the packet, you've got to really pull it apart a bit to create your dub, and it's always best to get it in a clip as well. So I'm going to just insert that in. Oops, I've just pulled it back out again. Let's try that again. Insert it in, remove the clip, leaving the dubbing in the loop. That's essential, by the way. And then I can spin up my dubbing loop. Make sure it's well caught. Then what I like to do actually with my dubbing loop is I take the tool away and I just use a fly clip. I just find it much more efficient when I'm wrapping. So before I start wrapping up towards the eye of the hook, what I want to do is just pull out some of the looser dubbing, just so I get a nice brush. And then I can, using my fly clip here, just come up the body. Just take your time, there's no rush. If it starts to get too many fibres coming forward, just stroke it back. But I'm fairly happy with the way it's going down at the moment. Every now and again, I'll just come in with my fingers and pull it back. And what I want to do is make sure it finishes, leaving myself plenty of room at the front for what comes next. I know you're sitting there waiting with bated breath. So I've got this up, leaving my plenty of room at the front, and I'm going to catch that in with my thread that's just waiting there. Secure it in. A couple of turns in front of that, just to make sure it's not going to back off and your dubbing loop's going to fall to pieces on you. So that's all gone well. And pull everything back, just a little tidy up at the front, and again you're just making sure that that's okay. Okay, so far so good. I know it looks like a hot mess at the moment, but it is going according to plan, believe it or not. Next thing then, I'm going to cut myself 2 bits of foam, and I'm using this, it's a wing bud cutter actually, and it's, I think it's a Hareline product, I'm not sure, but I've cut a bit of flat foam here that I've got, and I've already cut out one that I've got that I prepared earlier in true Blue Peter style. And again, similar sort of thing with this. This is this is definitely a Hareline product. It's the Loco Foam, and both the foam that I'm using is available from Uphaven Fly Fishing. I'll stick a link in the description for that. So first thing to do then, with the Loco Foam, what I've done is cut a little V in the end, which will save me a bit of work later on. And I'm going to capture the very tip, excuse my fingers, but I need them to be there at the moment. So I've just caught the tip of that, and I'm going to secure it in with just a couple of wraps. Next comes the thicker foam, and again just on the tip, don't know how well you can see, my fingers may be in the way, my apologies for that, but I'm just basically catching the tip in like so. And what I'm going to do is add a tiny bit of resin to my thread, and using my hands rather than the whip finish tool, because mine isn't big enough, I'm just going to put a couple of turns in to bring this around and finish off, just to lock that into place. I know, what's he doing, that is never going to work, but you just need to trust me. So I've cast my thread off and it looks like a complete disaster, but what I'm going to do is get some wax onto my thread now, and I'm going to come in at the back end, just where the tail is, try and avoid catching the Flashabou as much as possible. I mean, you are going to get some, there's no ifs nor buts about it. It's not a very what should I say, subtle fly. It's not a subtle fly, so don't be worrying about that. So I've cast on with 2 or 3 turns. I'm going to bring my first foam body over, and I'm going to capture that in 3 turns. Now what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to take away my thread that I cast on with, and I'm also going to take away the bulk of this foam at the tail. So it's just left me the back, which is going to help me with the shape of the fly. Next then, we're over again, with our loco, and again try and avoid, if you can, capturing all them long fibres, which you really want to keep if you can. So just keep them out the way. And again, just to finish this off, I'm going to add a little bit of UV resin to my thread. Then using my fingers, I'm going to whip finish. Now, you are going to catch in quite a lot of materials, don't worry about it, it can't be helped. So once that's done, make sure you give it a little blast, and that's looking pretty good. Maybe not to you, but to me it's coming along, it's where I want it to be. Next then, I'm going to loosen up my vise, and I'm going to brush all these fibres back, and you'll get what I mean by not worrying about catching in the fibres, because once you get your brush working here, everything just pulls out. It's a very light material. So that's coming along grand, fairly happy with that. And to finish off the eyes, I'm going to use, these are adhesive eyes, these are from Hareline, and they're an 1/8 of an inch. Now these are vinyl eyes, so they stick on. They are extremely tacky. Now the best way to take these eyes off is with a set of tweezers. Now a lot of people will complain that these eyes aren't very tacky, but these are extremely tacky. So the best way I've found so far is just to get a set of tweezers, loosen up your vise, get them to where you want them to go, pop them on, then again come in with your card, and get the next one, pop it on where you want it. Just check that they're lined up. And I would like to tell you that they'll go nowhere now, but I never trust that. So I'm going to come in with a little bit of UV resin. Just on both eyes. For a bit of belts and braces. Cure it off. And you've got yourself a cracking floating fry. So what the fish do is this time of year they'll be hanging around the weed beds and they'll smash into shoals of fry, and then the fry will be injured or sit on top of the water, and then the fish will just come and mop them up. Well, that's the idea anyway. And this line on the surface just looks perfect. You can, if you wish, come in with a bit of colour. There's brown markers, various markers available, but it's up to you. I'm just going to leave mine plain, and you've got a great looking little bait fish there. I hope you got something out of that, or it gave you some ideas. Thanks very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, I'd really appreciate if you click the button now, and I'll see you all next time.